for joining me today on this project. This is a footstool top or an Ottoman top that my friend dropped around for me the other day. It's leather. I'm not quite sure what fabric she's going to be changing it to. It doesn't have legs at the moment because my friend gave those to another friend of hers to paint. So let's get on with it. I'm going to start off by removing these tacks carefully. I have been trying to find tacks really quite a difficult prospect. So if I can take some of them out perfectly or almost perfectly like that, I will keep them for future projects. I'll continue all the way around. I'm also going to remove the bottom cloth and all the fabric. Everything's got to come off. And seeing as we're changing the design, I need to get it right back down to the basics. This is going to be a slow process to get all of these out. This is the top piece of foam that I've just taken off the footstool, and it's not very deep. It's 3 inches, actually just over 3 inches, but not by very much. The base here is about 6 inches, so it's not going to look very plush with an extra 3-inch cushion on top. So let's see what I've got that I can fix that problem with. Okay, I have this that was left over from a project. Let's see how deep that is. It's 2 inches. That gives me 5 inches, which is almost as deep as the base that it's going on. And it's 13.5. Fold that in half, get my halfway mark. Pop that on there. I'm going to cut this all the way down. I'm going to line my ruler with there and up to the centre and draw a line across, and I'll go all the way along this piece of foam. I'm not sure, but I think I should be able to cut this with a pair of scissors. It's going to be awkward, but it will do. I'm going to cut that all the way across. I've laid this all the way to the other end, and I'm going to mark where it should be cut to, like that. So across here. Measure from that end to there, which is about 21, and then that end to there to 21, draw across to there, and again I am just going to cut that through. I'm using 3M high strength contact, and I'm just going to spray all the way down to the other end and attach that edge to edge like that. This is going to go over and smooth any problems out. It's even on the sides here. I'm going to do the same with this on the other long side of this cushion. Now I've got my outer framework, which adds the 2 inches, and I just need to find a piece of foam that will fit in here, and it needs to be at least 2¼ inches. This will even out once everything's flat. It just looks a bit wonky at the moment. The first piece I need to have is at least 50.5 long, so I'm going to make this 50.5 long, and I'll measure the width so I can cut the top for the new cushion. Something I discovered with this is it has a little bit more give that way than I wanted it to, and I need it finished size 30.25, so I'm actually going to cut it at 31, and the stretch that it's got should give me that quarter. I'm going to just strip it at the moment. I'm going to put my marker there at 31, move it across, keep it as even as possible, and cut in here at 31 inches. That's the top. I want 2 strips at 5.75 for the side of the cushion. They're not going to stretch very much, so I'm not going to worry about allowing for that to happen. So there's one, and there's my second one, like that. And then I want 2 to start off with, to go from the outside base up, and I think I'll have 2 at 12 inches. Then I'll work the rest out in a minute. Those are my main pieces at the moment. I'll cut all of those across, and then whatever fabric I've got left is what I've got to make the rest of it from. So I've measured across, and this is 51.5 because I need the finished top to be 50.5. There's not very much give on that side, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. But if I run my measuring tape along the inside of the selvage here at 5, I'll have the right length. So I'm going to take that out and then just cut up this side. I'm not sure whether I need to use this as the underside of the cushion or whether I can use it for piping. I'll have a look in a minute. I'm going to just cut that up. Keep everything as square and as flat on as you can, making sure everything moves together. Here's where I'm aiming for, so I'll just get get that in line. Over just a little bit, and there. This is the top and then the two sides. What I'm doing is I'm overlaying the underside on top of the top fabric. So that's nice and even there. Make sure all the raw edges are on the raw edges. That make it as straight as possible. I'm going to have to make sure the right sides are up. They're a little bit difficult to see. Do the same on this side, and then this is the side piece. What I do is I put the selvage on the outside like that. I'm going to make sure that it looks about even from here to here. I'm going to fold it like that so that this edge here and that edge there are touching. Pin that into place at the bottom. Only the top fabrics, not the base fabric. And again, another pin at the top here. I'm just going to have to make sure that that is absolutely on the edge. So I'm going to put a pin there on the edge so I know where that corner really gets to. It's not at a 45-degree angle. I'm doing it like this so that I have the ability to come around the edge and not interfere when I put the sides in. I'm going to do the same on this side. Fold up like that and into that corner. And again, pin this end. One at the top so I know where that is. And then one on the inside where that edge and that meet. If I've got any problems, I can redo that. What I might do is put another one a little bit lower so I have no problems whatsoever. And I'll do the same on this side. Might be a little bit altered, but once I've sewn it, it'll be straight again. Now I'll do the other end. So here's my first corner. Pull that pin out like that so everything flattens into place. Slide that under there, and I'm going to run the inside of this fold on the inside here. So I have to eyeball it into that position. The stitch is on the longest stitch. I'm going to take that out so that also helps it stay in place. It doesn't wrinkle up. As I come to the top, I'm just going to take this one out. As long as part of this is underneath and it folds into place, that's all I care about. Take that one out. That's nicely in line, that's nicely in line. Take that off the edge, and then I'm going to put it back under. This fabric just catches underneath on the dog feet, which is a bit irritating. I'm going to do a second row of stitching with the outside of this foot on the outside of there, all the way to the top so it holds firm. It shouldn't come out, but just in case. This is quite a loose weave, and it's quite thick fabric, so to iron that in, it might not go in as straight as if I just sew it in the first place. So now I'll do the next one. My fabric is nice and straight on. I'm going to take that pin out so I can start right there. This time my folded fabric will be running along the inside of this foot here. I'll start that up. Remove that so everything kind of flattens out a little bit. Keep everything flat and even. As I get closer to the top, take that one out and that one. It's more or less even at the top. If I pull that out a little bit off the edge, I can put it back under this way and go back the other way, a foot width in. It kind of altered a little bit. I'm not going to worry about that because my 1/2 inch seam allowance comes here. Now I'll do the other two sides. I have cut a piece of fabric to go underneath the top here to match the underside of the footstool cushion, and I'm going to pin it all the way along so it stays even. This won't take too long, just helps me keep everything in order. Once I've got the outside organised, I'm going to pin the inside as well so I can get that evenly put in at the same time. I am going to run the fabric on the outside edge of the foot so that no stitching will be seen when I put the piping on. Raw edges together and on the longest stitch. I am pulling slightly the fabrics against each other. The top one seems to be wanting to walk a little bit more than the bottom. So I will be pushing it against my foot like that. Because I really don't want it to wrinkle up too much. And then hold it down. Foot up, needle down and turn. Foot down and sew. Keeping the raw edges together. I'm going to do all the way around this outside, keeping an eye on the fabric so it doesn't walk too much. I've done the outside. I'm just going to pop this down close to that pin there, remove it, and I'm going to keep the fabric as even as I can going into this first corner. And when I say even, I want it even that way. I want it even the other way too, but certainly sideways. I'm running the raw edge of this along that side of the foot. I'm not stretching the fabric, I'm just making sure it's not wrinkled because I don't want it looking funny when it's in place. Corners often go a little bit funny, so don't worry about that. So long as it looks even, that's all that matters. I think I need to push it up just a wee tad, as long as it's even that way. If the top fabric is wrinkled further underneath, it's not going to be that much of a problem because it's going to be hidden. And twist as I work down towards the next pin. The centre piece here is the bit that I'm going to cut. Do it pin to pin, it should stay more or less stable. I've gone all the way around, over stitching about an inch. So now, instead of having two pieces of fabric, I'm going to treat this as one large piece. I'm just going to staple the foam back into place so that when I put the new cover on, it doesn't pull all of this down. I'm lining up the sides face down, so I've got right sides together, lining up the raw edge of the side piece and the underside like this together, make my way across. I'm hoping that I haven't caught too much of the dacron underneath, pulling that into the corner here. These don't necessarily want to go through. There we go. And I will be going up the other side so everything's kept in place and flat. I want all of this to match up, so I can't move it around too much. At the corner, I'll fold that back like that, run the two raw edges together so that I get a really nice looking corner. Pinch down along the surface of the footstool, put the next pin in, and I am going to make my way, keeping that even, to the outside corner. If you have everything level here and equidistant from the outside edge, you shouldn't have any problem doing this. Should automatically go to that corner like that, to the corner. Double check that and that. I'm at the corner now. And pin. I'm going to match the bottom, make sure that's even, put a pin in. I cut them 12 inches for all four sides. If it's evenly placed, it should go in without any problem at all. Everything should match up. And I'm making my way up the outside edge like this. I'm not going to pull it too much. I want it to be evenly put in. And there's a little bit of shaping at the top there as it joins. This one comes out and in. I do have to put some dacron in so that doesn't show. It didn't matter on the original one because the top came down, the foam went over it, and then they put the side border on, but it will matter here. So that's done. All I got to do is ease it off and then make sure that none of it is attached to the top here. The sides need to be sewn in. Because I did it with right sides together, I don't have to undo anything. Pop that down, forward and back at the bottom, then up to the next pin. It's like doing dot to dot. You're going from pin to pin until you get to the top. There we go. Straighten that out just slightly. As I get to the top, I'm going to twist it and work my way across the top of the footstool that will be going over the base. I've undone the pins that were closest here so that can pull back, and I'm just going to go into that corner. Keep everything as flat and as even as you possibly can. Makes life a lot easier. Get to the top and reverse. Once you've done that, cut back generous 1/2 inch close to the seam that I've just put in on the outside so that I don't have any problems. All the way to the bottom, that'll be fine. It really doesn't matter where you start on this, as long as the raw side of the base, which is here, runs along the raw side of the fabric that goes onto the underside of the footstool. Put those together and I am going to sew into the corner. Hold it tight and start. Remove the pins as you go. Make sure everything there is flat. Make sure you are about 1/2 inch in from the outside edge. I'm going to open the seam up. I did think about top stitching it, but I don't think I'm interested today. Into this corner and the stitch line. Needle down, foot up, turn everything back into position. Again, my raw edges are running together, and now I'm going to go all the way down this side and pinch it all together again. It's a little bit awkward because there's quite a bit of fabric. Just got to my start point and I'm going around for the second time, which will be a lot quicker than the first time. Try to get your stitches on top of the original ones. It doesn't matter if they wander a little bit, especially at the corners. If you can manage that, that's really good, because the corners are the weakest points. Because I want it really secure. People tend to pick these up by the tops rather than underneath the whole unit, so I don't want the weight of it being a problem and tearing the top away from the bottom. Fold this into a triangle like that. Straighten that out a little bit so it's at a 45-degree angle like that, and cut along the fold line here like this all the way. And I am going to cut strips 1.5 inches wide, several of them, and I'll make the piping up. I'm going to cut this as I go and I'll start putting the top together. I've decided to cut 6 lengths off at 1.5 inches for the piping, just to start off with. Then I can add to it. The piping that I'm going to put underneath needs to be 2 inches wide. I'm putting the piping together, turn it over so the right sides are together to there, and I'll be cutting all this fluffy stuff off in a minute. Square that on and pop it under. It's on the shortest stitch length. I'm going to do this all the way across these pieces till I've got a nice long length. Put the piping in the centre, roll it over and start a little ways down. The stitch is on the longest length, and I'm using a thinner cording than usual because this is actually quite a bulky fabric, so I don't want too much bulk. Raw edges together and on down. As I get to each section, I'm going to cut it apart like that and then just cut up. Then I'll open it and make sure that that stays open as I sew over. Just make sure that that seam is wide open, fold it over the cording like that and sew over it. Make sure that everything is flat and that your cording is as hard into the fold as possible, and then it looks nice and even as you sew on through. I have quickly gone round to make sure that none of my joints like this are too close to any of the corners, and worked my way back. Move that forward just a little bit. All the raw edges together. It should be about 1/2 inch seam allowance on the longest stitch. Don't want to stretch this fabric, but I don't want it to wrinkle up too much either, so I'm going to hold it out, pinch the 2 pieces together like that, and sew. The top where the piping is might move forward slightly, and that's fine. Hold both pieces together like that, pull them together so they're nice and even on all the raw edges, and carry on going. You can adjust it as you get there if you need to. Hold that corner there, hold that fabric there, make sure it's all together, and work my way to the corner. As I get to the corner, I'm going to put a clip in here at a 45-degree angle like that, one above and then one below. Although the fabric is cut on the bias, I sometimes do that with a thicker fabric. Needle down, foot up and twist. I'm going to have to pick that up really high. Pull that into place, and it's a stitch over, so I'm going to have to pull it back in. Put the foot down, make another stitch, foot up and then pull it in. And it should be a little bit better lined up. Yes, it is. Sometimes it makes quite a difference doing that extra stitch. Pull the fabric out just a little way like that. Pull both fabrics together, raw edges, and carry on. I'll do that all the way around the top of this cushion cover. I'll do that all the way around the top of this cushion cover. Got round to where I started, I'm going to pull that over at least 1.5 inches and cut it. So I've got plenty of fabric to join it. Put the piping on this, which is the underside of the cushion, as this goes over the base of the footstool. I'm going to open up the piping cover. Just takes a little minute to get there. I'm going to lay this out like that and make sure I've got a good crossover. Now this one is a little bit close to that end, so I'm going to take it just a wee tad off like this. So I'm laying those two on top of each other. I'm coming over about 1/2 inch, which is to there, and I'm going to cut that up too. When I fold it over again, I'm going to watch to see where it crosses and go halfway through, which is about there. Should be about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Pop that underneath there like that. 1/4 inch usually means running the raw edges along the side of the foot. Now I've shortened the stitch to one of the shortest ones, and I'm going to just sew across, keeping the raw edges together. I'm going to check it. If I run that along the outside edge there, it seems to be in line, which means I've got it right. Now all I've got to do is to sew this closed. Before I get there, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that across like that, cut the piping at an angle, lay that one on top and roughly cut that at an angle. I might have to shorten it, but it won't be by very much. Lengthen the stitch. I'm going to pop this back underneath. I always do it in 2 parts like this because I like to keep everything where I need it to be, and sew across. Make sure that's folded over. Pop that into position like that. Make sure that is really tight into that seam and the seam is open. Adjust to the other end, or as close as you can. Go back to the top, about 1/2 inch to 1 inch behind the original sewing, like that, and I'm just going to sew it into place. Try to get all your threads to the outside like that if you can. Raw edges together, and then on the other side over stitch about 1 inch. It really doesn't matter, to be honest. It's just I like to make sure things are secure before I add onto it. This is the side band that goes on the cushion, and I am making sure that I put them in the right order. So I've got a long one underneath. It's got 1/2 inch seam allowance, forward and back, all the way to the end. This is my long one. This is my short one, which I'm going to pop here. And then the long one I'm going to put face down on top. Line the side raw edges like that. And again, forward and back at the top and all the way to the bottom. Keep that flat. That's the long one, and here's the short one. I'm going to cut the fluff off like this, and again, face down, match the top corners, forward and back, keep everything tight. I don't want to twist this, so I'm going to put the top there, work my way to the other end, cut that off as well. And because I've twisted it, I'm just going to make sure that it is absolutely in line. So I'm going to pop that under there. I'm not going to sew it, just pop it there. And then bring both tops, because sometimes when you twist things to cut them, you might actually twist them in general. It looks like it's in exactly the right place. So again, line that top corner up, forward and back. Hold on to the bottom corner like that, pull it out so it's nice and taut, and make your way to the other end. I'm just going to start making my way around. What I've done is I've lined the seam up with the corner. This is a short length of fabric, and this is the short length of the top of the seat cushion. Put a pin in like that to hold it, and one at the other end as it goes around like that. And then I'm going to straighten it out and find out where the centre is, which is about there. I'm going to pin the centre in as well. Now I've got the long length of fabric and the long side, and I'm going to do the same. Pull it out to make sure that the top and that are in line. Again, at the corner, put a pin, both corners together, and pull it out like this. And as I pull it, it should line up with the centre of the side seam, like that. I'm going to put a pin there and one midway either side. I don't usually pin things, but I want this to be a little bit more exact because those corners have to match up. And I'll do that on the other two sides to make sure everything looks even. I've actually decided to sew open the seams at each end of the side border, because otherwise when I go around it's going to fold over and cause a problem, and I don't want that to happen. I want them nice and flat. Then I'll repin that into the corner like that. Having done that on both sides, I'm going to come to the centre here, slide that underneath. Let's get that needle a little bit higher, line that up and sew into position. Hopefully I won't have any problems. I will pull a little bit so it's taut top and bottom, keeping all the raw edges together. I want the seam to be right on the corner. Reline the raw edges. A little bit of tautness but not too much. That's where I want it there. Straighten the side border out like that and bring it in at a slight angle. Everything should be nice and flat underneath. To foot up, I forgot to cut it. I don't have to cut it by very much because it's quite a loose weave. Bring the top round slightly, put at least one stitch in, make sure that's down. Lift the foot up and then swing the rest of this into position like that. And pull the border out on the underside, set everything up, put that down and then sew across about an inch. Straighten to my next pin, which I'm going to remove. Pinch that together, roll that on and then pull it slightly with the raw edges together. And I'm going to do that all the way around this top. Just come around the last corner and here is where I started, so I'm going to go over at least an inch to make sure that those stitches are all caught in. I'm going to change my foot out. This fabric frays so badly. I'm going to sew a zigzag all the way around the top of the seat cushion. It should hold if I do this. The reason why I cut the piping cover on a diagonal is because there was no chance of it unraveling, so by doing this stitch over it, it holds it onto the flange of the piping. I've just popped the underside of the cushion in here and I'm going to do the same as I had done, corners to corner and attach with a pin. Make sure short side is to short side and attach. It just gets a little bit awkward if you've got two sides that are very similar in length. Pull that out, pinch the centre and pin. I'm going to do that all the way around. Again, pop that underneath. This is going to clatter. Put that on a straight stitch, otherwise I'll be breaking needles as well. Remove the pin, raw edges all together, a little bit of tautness, and it's going to clatter like mad. It's going to make that sound all the way around because it's just a little bit too thick to go under. It will work. If I keep it taut, the fibres kind of pull, it makes it a little bit slimmer. Line that up and I'm going to aim for that corner. I'm going to pop that in like that so it turns. I'm going to sew into the corner, again keeping it a little bit taut. There's quite a bit going on underneath this one. I do accidentally have a join here and a join there, which isn't my usual way of doing it. It's just the way it happened. So this is going to make a lot of clatter. Into that corner, make sure the seam underneath is fully out. There we go. Lift that up slightly so it doesn't twist. Always push the seam forward if you're turning, just to make sure everything's where it needs to be. A couple of stitches down. Pick the foot up, which of course isn't picking up because there's so much stuff under there, and twist it all into place. Foot down and sew. And then I'm going to carry on going round exactly the same way, adjusting the raw edges as I go. All I've done is put some fabric underneath and I'm pulling this in as tight as I can so that my cut mark will join and pull in the sides so they look even. It takes a little while to get these pulled in, and as I sew from the corner up I will pull it in as well. It will go in nicely. All I do is I have the fabric underneath and I just do a wide ladder stitch all the way up on 4 points so that it's nice and tight. I've pulled the corner in and stapled here. I'm going to be working from the center of each side like this and pushing it as far as I can and making it as even as I can against this board here for as long as I can. And then the next one. Once that is in position, I'm going to start putting the piping on, which I'm going to run the sewing line against the edge here so it does come out slightly, and staple that into position too. To join the piping, the cord is there and finishes, and then swept that back and secured it. I've cut this piece of cording so it's a little bit short. Cut that little piece off there. Line the cording part up together like that so it crosses over, and then I'm going to secure it like that. Bring the bottom cloth over to cover everything and finish off, and it'll look quite neat under there. I'm really pleased with the way this has turned out. If I had not put the extra foam on, the top cushion would only be about that thick, which would looked rather skimpy with the depth of this under here. So I'm really pleased with it. My friend should be picking it up later today for her friend. If you want to hear more from me, please subscribe, hit the bell button, and a few thumbs up would be brilliant. Take care, see you later. Ciao.